Good evening, everyone. Hey, it's Gina from, I do this all the time, from Rise Up from Trauma. We are, uh, we're kind of going to do things a little bit different tonight. So yeah, sorry, I was kind of in the middle of doing something and then I decided to go live. So my one business is Healing Canvases, and that's actually where I combine, let me tell you a little bit, coaching and art combined together. So it's the art and kind of the neuroscience behind the algorithms. And then Rise Up from Trauma is actually part of the division of what we do here on YouTube. And so what we do here is we kind of share some healing strategies for trauma survivors, mental health professionals, um, uh, church lay persons and so forth. And so every week we get on here, we kind of share some different ideas. We have, some guests on here that share a lot of what they do to help trauma survivors. And so over the last few weeks, it's been phenomenal with all of our guests. And so what I wanted to do is kind of talk about what my specialty is. And as you see what my title is, it's Certified Neurotransformative Specialist. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's a huge term or, a huge title. What does that actually mean? And a lot of people, sometimes it's overwhelming to them or they're just like, oh, yeah. So basically what it means is it's neuro is the brain, transformative is I transform the brain. Good evening, Scott. And on specialist is just a specialist or practitioner. When I started figuring out through my own healing journey that I had cognitive distortions, and the one that I had was the catastrophizing. And so when I started going through my own journey and started realizing that the cognitive distortions, the overthinking, the negative thinking, the negative bias was something that was really creeping up on me, I really started digging deep into why it happens. And so I'm going to kind of share some of those things with you tonight. So so the title tonight is The Overthinking Mind, Restructuring Your Thoughts. Hi, Michael. And so this is, I was going to say phenomenal, but this is actually a really good, I guess, the really good healing modality, healing strategy for anybody that has CPTSD, PTSD, because a lot of it is, it's mind driven, psychological, but it's not always, sorry, but it's also physiological, which is the body that we always talk about. The body keeps the score. And so it was something that I struggled with for a very, very long time. I had to go on and start doing some cognitive restructuring coaching. And so how I did that, some of you know, some of you don't know, is I spent about 8 months writing a workbook. It's called In the Mind, Trauma to Transformation. And literally what's in this book is anything that you can think of trauma related. And so it really goes from talking about what is complex trauma, developmental trauma, and then going into a lot of the after effects of trauma, why certain modalities don't work, adaptive and maladaptive coping skills. Adaptive is positive, maladaptive is a negative coping skill. And it has a lot of charts. Like here's a chart here for self-care. And so I knew if I struggled that I wasn't the only one. And so I wrote this workbook and I published it not once, not twice, but I think 3 times, maybe even 4 times now. Because as I published it, I was like, wow, like this would be cool to add this to the book or this to the book. And everybody's like, just write a second book or a third book. I'm like, no, it has to be in this one. Finally, after I think it was the 3rd or 4th time, it's finally finished now. I don't know if I changed the cover. I don't know if you get it when you buy it, if it's plain like this, or if it actually has my other logo on it. I don't remember, but the content's the same. I think I just changed the cover. But anyway, it goes in here and it talks about what is cognitive distortions, what is overthinking, how do you do fusion and diffusion. And so let's talk a little bit about, the average thoughts that a person has in a day. There's some of you in the chat, and I just want to take a moment to see, does anybody have a guess on how many thoughts a person has per day? No cheating. No cheating. Just throw out just a random number. And let's see if anybody gets close. and while we're waiting for some numbers in the chat and things like that, I just hope and pray that if you are in the path of this this hurricane that's getting ready to hit the mainland, coming up Florida, the coast, the East Coast, I just hope and pray that it doesn't, that it literally dissolves in the ocean, especially after, 2 weeks ago when the East Coast had the other hurricane. So I just want you to know that I'm really thinking of you all and praying for you all to have safety and things like that as this next one moves in. And I just really do hope it dissolves in the middle of the ocean. So Sly Fox said 30,000, and you're about halfway right, actually. So nobody else is going to take a wild guess, and that's all right. So let me just tell you. So the average person isn't in the description. Are you talking about my book? Or are you talking about the thoughts per day? Because actually, if I would have put it in the description, it probably would have been higher, because I don't know if these statistics are really right, but it's okay. Because I read somewhere else that they were actually a little bit higher, but it's okay. It's all right, Michael, that you wanted to look in the description. Don't worry. So at one point I was reading, it said that we have an excessive of 400,000 thoughts per day. On average, most people have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts per day. And a lot of those thoughts we don't pay attention to because our mind starts ruminating. Usually it's a vicious cycle of negativity, or our mind just ruminates over the same thing. And the funny thing is, it's not funny, haha, but it's just funny that our mind picks up on the negative. So let me go back a minute and kind of tell you how our minds become negative, what ends up happening, and kind of working through a little bit of the overthinking, some cognitive distortions, and then we'll go into some of the cognitive restructuring. I won't keep you all very late tonight. We'll probably be on here hopefully about a half hour, maybe 40 minutes. I'm very tired tonight. And my body's sore. I have to tell you this because you guys will get a kick out of this. So Thursday was parents' night. If you follow my husband on Facebook or anything like that, you'll know that our son plays football. And so Thursday was parents' night. And I thought I was going to be like the hip mom and, be the cool mom. And so it was, we could tackle them. And then there was something else that we could do too. And so I told my husband, you know what, I'm going to try to tackle this kid. Well, all the other kids kind of took it easy on their parents. Some of them didn't. Some of them, most of them did. But of course, my son didn't. He's a schmuck. And I love him dearly, but he's a schmuck. And he did not go lightly on me. I mean, although he says 50%, he's lucky he didn't break my hip. But he charged at me. And I was just going to be a goofball and, try to pick him up and just, lightly tackle him. Well, no, that's not what happened at all. And so I got thrown to the ground. I have bruises on my left side. My shoulders, all of my chest up in here kills, my back, shoulders, my arms, biceps, triceps. I'm like, oh man, it was terrible. So now I know that I'm getting older, that I can't do any of that stuff. So, but it was just something like, oh golly, I'm like, oh, it's okay. I did have a good time though, but despite being sore, it was a good time. So I just thought you guys would get a good kick out of that. So let me kind of go back and tell you how cognitive distortions, the negative thinking, negative bias, how this comes to be. Because a lot of people think, oh, it just happens in adulthood. And sometimes it does. But most of the time, here's what happens is our mindset is shaped in childhood. We become a product of our environment, a product of our circumstance. And what that means is that if you're in a household that there's nothing but negativity, unfortunately, you're going to take on that negative mindset. Everything that you do, every aspect of your life is probably going to be negative. You'll probably have a negative friends, influences. You're going to pick up more negativity than you would have, positive. And so one of the analogies I like to use, and I've probably used it on here before, is so you're kind of walking through a forest and you have a backpack on, and and so you come to this rock and you look at it and you're like, oh, that's beautiful. And it says negative. So you throw it in your backpack. And so you keep going and going and going. And as you went, before you realize it, your backpack is just like you're just going down and down and down and down. So you come around a curve and you get to this other rock and it's absolutely beautiful. And guess what it is? It's positive. All you have to do is dump all that negativity and you get this beautiful positive rock. Well, guess what happens? Because we don't know that we have this negative. We have no idea until we are made self-aware of what's going on in our brains and in our bodies and in our minds. Um, we look at it, we say, oh, it's beautiful, but then we put it back down. Then we start walking and every rock that we pick up is negative. And then before you know it, you're just lower and lower and lower and lower. And unfortunately, again, until you recognize and you become self-aware of what's going on, most people don't even know that they have any type of cognitive distortions, overthinking. They have no idea that that's taken place. And so I had no idea when I went through all of my negative thinking, all of my cognitive distortions. It was interesting how things played out. I like to use my life experiences because people can relate to those. So if it bugs you, I apologize. That's just really what coaching is all about. It's bringing in the life experiences along with the education, because a lot of people are like, that was me. That was me. And so what I started realizing is that once I started healing and I was on this healing journey to fix my mind, I started looking at my friend group. Then I started looking at the way I talked and the influence I was on my kids and my family. And what I started realizing was my whole entire friend group was negative. Everybody that I hung around with was negative in one way, shape, or form. They were not pouring anything positive into me. They were always pouring negative. And so that carried over to me. I was always a negative person. I was always very revengeful. And I thought, man, I don't want to be like this anymore. Like, I don't want to be like this. So when I started recognizing that I had these, again, this is, how I started writing my workbook and things like that too. And so one of the things with it is, we grow up and then we start having that negative mindset. And although we think, oh, things are okay, so it just takes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of you looking at what you're saying and listening, truly listening to what you're saying. Because most of the time a friend can say to you, like Sly, I could say, hey, Charles, what you're saying is a negative statement. And he'll look at me and say, no, it's not. You're the negative one. Until you identify what you're doing, you really have no cognition as far as what's going on negative wise, if that makes sense. So let me go over a little bit of the cognitive distortions. There's all or nothing. All or nothing is more of the black and white terms. Over generalizing is making broad conclusions based on a single incident. That basically is like, I failed a test. Now I'm not going to be successful, all because you may have failed one test. Mental filter. This is where you dwell on a single criticism, and you just allow that to fester up. So that one there will overtake anything else. And so say you're doing, I had to think of how this one, say you're doing you did a presentation and all of a sudden your boss comes up and says, you did a fantastic job, but you messed up on a couple words. Well, guess what? With mental filter, what ends up happening is that you end up dwelling on that single criticism, although you just had 50 people on the other side saying, good job, good job, good job. But now you focus on those two minor things that you did because, somebody literally pointed them out to you. Jumping to conclusions. This is where you make assumptions without evidence. That's why it's always, what's the word? I hate when this happens. Sorry, I get on these things and then I'm like, oh, my brain starts going like left, right, wherever else. Sorry. That's when you need to start doing your critical thinking, but there's something else I want to say and I can't remember what it is, so I apologize. It's where you do your critical thinking. It's where you analyze. Yes, thank you. That's the word. I don't know who I'm thanking, but maybe God, whoever, but it just came to mind. Analyze. So it's where you analyze and then you take all that critical thinking, analyze it, and then you come up with your own assumption. Was it true? Was it fake? Were they real? Is it bothering you? And things like that. That's how you can discover what exactly is going on for your own peace of mind. Catastrophizing. This is the one that I had. And so this one is where you take a scenario, and it's actually the worst case scenario that could ever happen. And so, what a lot of people don't realize is sometimes people get thoughts, or people mainly get thoughts. Um, my brain likes to play movies. And so, that is one of the hardest things to overcome. So when I tell you that my brain was catastrophizing, your catastrophizing may be on the terms of, your thoughts are just negative, or you're thinking, oh my goodness, if I do this, uh, this is going to happen. It's something far, it's far fetched, but there's a possibility. So then what you would do is you'd look at, okay, what are the stats? What are the statistics to prove that this, and this? For me, mine is a movie based. It's very visual. And so, I can talk like self-talk, which we'll kind of talk about, but what I need to do is show myself positive pictures, if that makes sense. So what ends up happening is uh it goes into the hippocampus, and the hippocampus is like your filing cabinet. That's where all of your memories are stored. And if a negative memory comes up, then it usually activates the amygdala, which then activates fight, flight, fawn, and freeze, or the body keeps the score, which is the embedded trauma in the cellular level. When that happens, that usually fuels the negative thinking as well. They go hand in hand. And so, mine was a little bit harder to overcome. And so it took me a lot of work to overcome all of that. And so I'm learning. I still have some issues. I'm not going to lie. I still have some issues. There's still things that I'm working on, overcoming them slowly. But you know what? I believe that small steps equal success. Labeling and mislabeling. This is something that is, after a setback. This would be perfect for my son, after they lost their game yesterday. Not that he was calling himself a loser. It was more of, he was just so upset because he's so passionate about football. And, when the team doesn't carry you the way that they're supposed to, and they're not playing as team players, then he looks at it like, I'm a loser, when in fact he's really not. It could be the team. The team just wasn't there yesterday. Then I know there's another one. I can't think of what it is. It's I don't have my list, but stereotyping. A lot of people don't even realize that stereotyping is actually a form of cognitive distortions. And how many of you knew that or didn't know that? Because I actually didn't know it when I started studying about the brain and stuff like that, and the mind. So stereotyping is where somebody can be walking down the street, and they might have all kinds of beautiful jewelry on and look really nice. And you're like, man, that person must be rich. When in fact, they could have fake jewelry on, and they could be wearing, a fake fur jacket, and you have no idea. And so we stereotype, or look at that person. That person is a certain way. Sorry, my nose is itchy because my allergies are driving me nuts. And so we stereotype people all the time. I mean, it's kind of like judgment, but I think we just stereotype. And so stereotypical people, that is actually a form of cognitive distortions as well. So that's just a couple of them I wanted to share with you, and things like that too. So let's get into like some of the overthinking. And so overthinking is caused by, the number one is trauma. Specifically, probably I would say like childhood trauma, CPTSD, and obviously PTSD as of right now, until CPTSD gets on the DSM-5. And then it goes like anxiety. Anxiety fuels exactly what I just said. The body keeps the score. So what ends up happening is that when your body has a reaction, your mind doesn't know what's going on. So instantly your anxiety will kick in and say, oh my goodness, I'm anxious. Then the ruminating thoughts start happening. Another overthinking is perfectionism. How many of you are perfectionist? Perfectionism is actually a trauma response. It's a it's overanalyzing decisions and situations, but it's actually a form of shame. It comes up as shame. So think about it when you have perfection, um, you don't want to make mistakes. You want things to be perfected. And so if it's not perfected, it brings up shame. Well, what is the root cause of that shame underneath all that perfection? Well, there's a root cause. There's a root cause. So either something happened in your childhood or through your teen years that caused you to be a perfectionism. For me, my perfectionism, I tell everybody I'm a recovering perfectionist because realistically I am. You would never see. Let me show you. See, I'm going to show you. See how messy this paper is. You would never see this. You would never see this. This would have been. I would have rewrote this and perfected it. But now I don't care. Now I'm like, you know what? My time is of the essence, and I have to do more time management, and I don't have time to rewrite things. As long as I can read that, I'm okay with that. Did it take me one day to get over it? No. It was about 2 years before I finally started realizing, because it would get to the point that I was writing things and I would be on the back, like on the back of a piece of paper after I just wrote the whole entire front. And I would cross out a word and I would literally go back and rewrite the whole front page and then start on the whole back page again. That's how bad my perfectionism is or was. And so the root cause is shame. We feel like a failure. And so we start perceiving ourselves as something that we're truly not. But because we have all that shame, all that hurt and pain underneath, it causes us to be perfectionist. Fear of judgment, past experiences. Again, going back to the negative experiences and things like that, uncertainty, low self-esteem. A lot of trauma survivors have low self-esteem because of things that they've endured in their childhood. Maybe they weren't taught. They didn't have love, they didn't have nurturing, therefore they didn't have the caring, they didn't have emotional regulation. So now their emotions are all out of whack. They don't know how to regulate their nervous system. They don't know how to co-regulate their nervous system. So there's a lot of things. Information overload. You're just overloading yourself with so much information that from day to day, everything that you're doing, that your mind and your brain just can't keep up with it. And so it's kind of like your window of tolerance. When your window of tolerance kind of comes into play, your window of tolerance is where kind of like you're checking your battery to see where is your window of tolerance as far as you dealing with people or being able to be around people or circumstances or being out. Where is your window of tolerance? My window of tolerance as of right now is still about a 4-hour window, maybe 5 hours. So I know where my optimal levels are during the day. And so those are the time, that's the time frame that I try to have my clients in, because that's when I perform optimally. And I know after that I will be present, but I want to make sure that I am there and I'm present and I'm at my optimal performance from my clients. And so I know where my window of tolerance is. And this is how you kind of can find out if you're curious about your window of tolerance, is basically what you do is when you get up in the morning, how do you feel? Couple hours after, check your battery. Check your battery means how are you feeling? Where are you at? Is your battery a quarter charged, half, 3/4 full? Where are you as far as your battery being charged? When you notice that you start feeling drained, that's when you know your window of tolerance is closing. That's when you know that, outside of your window of tolerance, things might, I don't want to say a disaster, but you may be a little cranky. And so you really want, that's something to pay attention to. And I think, a lot of employers need to pay attention to that too, because, us as adults, we become overstimulated. There's a lot going on in the world. A lot of us have kids. We do a lot of things. And so we become overstimulated. And so, when that happens, taking a step back And I love nature. There's a lot of fishermen on here, a lot of kayak bass fishing that they actually love. They love nature. I love nature. They love fishing. Fishing's all right. Um, I just go because I like catching fish, and then when I don't catch fish, and then I get irritated because I've only like caught 0 fish all season. My husband helped me with 1, but realistically speaking, I've caught 0. So then I'm just like, I'm not going. I'm throwing my rod in the water. So then guess what happens to Gina? Her window of tolerance closes, and it's like, I'm irritated. I need to get out of here. But I stay because I like nature. I love being out in the sun and all of that stuff. So anyway, yeah. So then the other one that causes the overthinking is stress. And how many of us have stressful lives? If you didn't raise your hand, you are full of baloney. Because if you don't have stress in your life, we need to talk. Because either you're not identifying it or you're doing something that we all need to know the secret. So you shouldn't, but some people do have a little bit of stress in their lives. And so let's go into the restructuring portion of this and the reframing. And so you can always ask questions if you have a negative thought or something negative that you want us to reframe. Type it in the chat and I will do my best to reframe it and kind of help you with the reframing. So what we do is we look at, first of all, we have to look at the triggering. Triggering is usually is what brings out a lot of the the cognitive distortions or the overthinking, the overanalyzing, things like that. So we look at what is the triggering circumstance, what's happening within that's causing these. And of course, it's the thoughts, the situation, feelings, and events. And then we work on that as a whole body. We just don't work on the mind because it's not just the mind. It's not the psychological, it's the physiological with the psychological. So when I use those terms, psychological is the mind, brain portion. Physiological is the body, the systems within the body. And so they work hand in hand together. So you can't work on one without the other because when they're triggered, they both go hand in hand. And so so that's the first thing that we work on. And then we come up and just say that all of a sudden, there's an inner critic. I'm not going to throw that in here right now, but my inner critic, I'll just talk. My inner critic, sometimes throws out these things and there gets to be a lot of resistance. And so some of the things that'll end up happening is what I'm drawing. My little green guy, his name is Fred. He does not like to go against the grain. And so my little green guy will pop up, not all the time because I've been doing the drawing now for a while. But in the beginning, my little green guy would pop up and Fred would be like, Jeannie, you need to stop. This is not safe. Bad things are going to happen to you if you continue to draw. And I'd sit there for a minute and I was like, if I could just flick you out of my brain or if I could just flick you wherever you are, I definitely would. But the inner critic is there to keep us safe. The inner critic is there as a way to kind of help us. It's like a distorted truth in a way. And so the inner critic is there, again, to keep us safe in a distorted way. It's kind of weird to explain how that all works. So anyway, the more I started going against the grain, the more I started going against what Fred was telling me, the more I started leaning into the discomfort, the higher my confidence level got, the higher I got a boost in my confidence. So what ends up happening is that your distress and your tolerance level increases. And then your fight or flight decreases. So that's a huge thing. And so so when that would have taken place, what I did was I was like, okay, Fred, thank you for being here. I mean, it's kind of like you're self-talking and that's pretty much what you're doing here. But if you start realizing the inner critic, we won't go into all that, but the inner critic, we had Mike on here a couple weeks ago. He talked about the inner children, the inner critic, they kind of go hand in hand. And so we do have parts within us. It's the internal family system. So there are parts within us that are from our childhood. And so basically you are talking to yourself, but you're talking to your younger self, if that makes sense. So really you're not talking to yourself in a sense of that way, but you're talking to your younger self. And so you would say, I've got this. I am safe. By drawing doesn't put me in jeopardy. By drawing, these things are not going to happen. And so as trauma survivors, sometimes we get stuck in a survival mode. And when we're stuck in survival, this is what happens. We see everything out of the ordinary. Everything ends up being kind of like foreign to us. And so we have resistance, and we don't like to do anything because we feel like there's a threat or a danger. So we don't want to continue to keep doing it. And so um, it's reframing. So for instance, like for me, I don't like guns. I don't like them at all. And so if I hear one, I always have to self-talk myself and say, I'm safe, I'm okay. That's nowhere near me. Um, and kind of calm myself down. And I know how to do some adaptive coping skills, which is the positive coping skills. Um, Saying, I'm stupid, I'm a failure, I'm a dummy. That is some shame. There's some shame rising up there. But then you would come back and you'd say, you know what? I may have failed this, but I have succeeded how many times? Don't let one test just try to drive you out, because that's not good either. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't want to look in my book, so I'm like, oh, what else? And then some of them are like, I know my mind is like blank, like, hello, because I've worked on myself for so long. I'm like, oh my goodness. Um, does anybody have any cognitive distortions they want reframed? At all? Um, this never happens because I'm just like, oh my god. Well, probably because I've worked on myself for so long, and this is one of the specialties that I do in coaching. You'd think that I'd know, but like all of a sudden, my brain just went blank. So I apologize when that happens. Sometimes it's nice to have a guest on here, and then it kind of goes back and forth. But I like being able to be on here and just talk and educate on what I love about doing part of my coaching and things like that too. So yeah, I think a lot of it always stems back to safety. Um, some worry about let me see. Some worry about how others think of them. How others think of them. Yeah, we do. And so that's part of the. I think it's personalizing. I think that's what it is. I think that's personalizing. Um, and so personalizing is, I think that's the one it is, but we do. So we all worry about, for me, throwing my life experience again, is exactly what Sly said. Some worry about how others think of us. And so it's like looking at it and going, feeling comfortable in your own skin, feeling comfortable in you, and not worrying about what other people think. Now, that took me a long time, so I can't sit here and say, oh, you go do it, because it took me a very, very long time to overcome that, because I always cared what everybody thought of me. I always cared, like, oh, if somebody's having a cookout and I didn't get invited, why? What's wrong with me that I didn't get invited? And so I'm not going to bring my faith in, but now I kind of see where things were happening and things like that too. So it's a matter of looking at the whole entire picture. You may not know the answer right away, but looking at the whole entire picture and saying, you know what, it's not me, it's them. I do have other friends, or I am beautiful. I do like the outfit that I'm wearing today. Um, Certain things like that to kind of help you overcome the challenges that you're faced when it comes to how other people perceive you. It took me a very long time to love myself. I hated myself for the longest time. I hated the way that I looked. And one of the biggest things that you can do for yourself, especially on your healing journey, is to offer yourself self-compassion and really working on yourself. And so I started loving myself. Started taking care of myself. I started loving myself. I started looking in the mirror and saying, man, Jeannie, you're beautiful. And, and that's what you need to do. And really self-talking myself in a positive manner. I have another video on YouTube where I did a lot of, positive affirmations. I think I did it last year, maybe the year before. I did a lot of positive affirmations because if you start instilling positivity in 21 days, you will change your mindset. I'm not saying that just with the positive affirmations, but it will really help you understand how negative maybe your mindset was. Because what we try to do with cognitive reframing, cognitive restructuring, is we want your mind to automatically switch. So when all of a sudden, when a negative thought comes in, we automatically want your brain to switch right to the positive, right to the positive. So Sly said, I guess I never worried about what other people thought of me. Some say it's good and some say it's a bad thing. LOL. I guess I like myself more than what others think. Oh, absolutely. But, and I appreciate that, but it does go back to, how do you feel about yourself? How do you perceive yourself? And some people like myself held on to a lot of shame. And when I started working through a lot of the shame, I started learning to love myself. Then I started realizing, that body image, society wants you to be a size 0. I will never be a size 0. And so I'm okay with the way that I look. I was never okay with the way I looked before, though. I had to work on myself and do different things and things like that. But, it's all about how you perceive yourself and helping with the shame response that ends up coming up from our trauma and things like that too. I just can't believe, like, this is crazy. Like, I cannot believe the restructuring portion of this. I'm like, holy mackerel. And so I have, I was trying to think, okay, so I have a client that always calls herself fat. She calls herself fat. And she doesn't think she's very pretty. And so we have been working on changing her mindset and things like that. And what'd you say? Size 0 is round. You can be a 0 with me. I'm round. Oh, he's too funny. Yes, we'll be round together. Thank you. And so, getting her to understand, where is this coming from? What is the root cause of why you think you're this way? And what we have identified is that there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame coming up. And so when we started working on being more compassionate, treating yourself like you would a friend. If I came to you and I would say to you, I'm fat and ugly, I hope you wouldn't say, yeah, you are. I guess, but you would talk to yourself like you would a friend. Be there for yourself like you would a friend. And so, reframing is just, developing positive counter statements. And so working through that and saying, you know what, I may not be where I am today, but I'm working on me. That's all I can do right now. I may not think that I'm beautiful, but I'm accepting of myself and I'm pretty. So that's, kind of the, how we do a lot of the reframing and restructuring. And so it takes time. It's nothing that can happen overnight, because what you need to do is change the patterns. So you need to change the patterns. So, and what we're doing is how we change the patterns is we're literally creating new neurons. And so that's why I absolutely love, and I know I talk about it a lot, but the drawings that we're doing, the algorithms that we're doing, because basically what we're doing is drawing new neural pathways. We're working gently in your subconscious. We tap into your subconscious as we're drawing. And then so we work on the subconscious, the unconscious, and the conscious level. And so it really has helped me with a lot of things that are going on and things like that too. And I'm willing to do a session. If anybody, would like to do a session, I'm willing to do a session. So, like a small session, so you can see exactly what it is and how it really works with not only trauma and really releasing the trauma in the cells, that, the trauma that's embedded into the cells, but the trauma that we have repressed, that's sitting in our subconscious, that there's unhealthy means of getting it out. And so this is a healthy alternative to get it out of your mind, and start changing the way that we think. Start changing the way that all of this trauma, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be childhood trauma. It can be adult trauma. There's all kinds of, it can either be trauma, it can be a goal if you would like a goal. Some people have drawn about eliminating anxiety. Some people have drawn about making more money, having more clients. And so, draw about catching more fish. Hey, that would have been a good one. I should have did for the knucklehead. I should have just drew with the teams and been like, hey, who's going to catch the most fish? We would have seen, right? No, but it can be a goal, a theme, or a topic. So you can draw on those two. And so that's one of the things that I've really been doing, and it's been really helping as well. So do we have any questions? Any other questions as far as what's going on? I don't want to keep you guys too long, but so, yeah, I apologize that my mind's just like, maybe I'm just fried from doing it so much that I'm just like, oh yeah, this is great, but it's, and so I do want to do an exercise with you. It's called diffusion and fusion. And so basically what it is, it's like, I better make sure I do it right. Let me look in my book. Let me cheat for a second and look in my book. Let's see. I want to make sure I tell you right, because it is a pretty neat thing, because when you have overthinking and you do have, yeah, here it is. So when you have overthinking and you have ruminating thinking, and overanalyzing and overthinking mind, what ends up happening is that you become consumed by all of that. And so what this exercise does is that actually shows you, when you have overthinking, negative thinking, how this really takes a toll on you, because it's like you're blinded. So I'll kind of show you what you do here. So I'm trying to think where it is. Okay. I was like, yeah. Okay. I was like, where is it? Because the first couple of pages were actually about, okay. So what you would do is you'd place your hands side by side on your lap like a book. And then your hands represent your thoughts, particularly your repetitive negative thoughts. Now slowly bring your hands to your face to where they're almost touching your face and covering your eyes, so you can only see between the gaps of your fingers. So like this. And so as you do that, and you're kind of looking straight, and you look out, I mean, obviously, you have peripheral vision. So, you'll be able to see a little bit, but what else can you see? Can you see in front of you? When you're looking and you have the gaps in between your fingers, what can you see realistically? Probably not a whole lot, right? Probably just a smidgen. And you probably can't see too much out the side, right? So, so this is actually what we call fusion. And so what we're doing now is as you slowly start moving your hands away like this, what ends up happening? I can see in front of me. Matter of fact, I can see all around me. I can see everything. And so what happens is that's diffusion. So fusion is when your eyes are kind of like you're stuck. You can't see anything outside of this area. Diffusion is when everything's lowered and everything becomes aware and you can see everything. And so when we do the fusion into the diffusion, some of the things are, what negative thoughts come to mind? If you have a negative thought, what is that negative thought saying? What emotions do you experience when you get that negative thought? Do you get anger? What are the feelings? What feeling is happening in your body? Do you have heart palpitations? Are you sweating? Do you get dizzy? What's happening within your body? What symptoms are you experiencing? What do you believe to be the truth? And then looking at the truth after you analyze everything, what are you tossing out? How did you come to your conclusion? And then what positive thought is remaining? And so it really is a huge strategy when you are learning. I was trying to go back here to see like some of the cognitive distortions and all that stuff too. But going in and looking and saying, okay, this is really what I want to do. Working on your triggering, and then working on, again, working on the psychological and the physiological. That's a lot of what we need to do. And so, it's looking at all of that, looking at all of your facts, and then analyzing everything to say, okay, I'm gathered all my information. I'm going to process it all so I understand what's going on. When you start doing that as well, your mind will start picking up exactly what's going on. And you'll have your answer in a matter of seconds because you have trained your brain to do all that. So there's so much more to this. I'm just giving you like touching on the iceberg, because there's the negative bias. There's 3 types of negative thinking, inflexible thinking. And so there's a lot when it comes to negative thinking and cognitive distortions, overthinking, overanalyzing. And so really looking at, restructuring your thoughts, collecting your thoughts, understanding your thoughts, exactly what's going on. And just really looking at how you can do different things, and how you can actually strengthen your mind, your brain, and things like that too. And, and lessen, whatever cognitive responses that you have, or anything like that. I do want to close with this though, because this is something that's pretty interesting too. So this is it's called thinking strategies. And because, when I told you earlier about stereotyping, that was actually a cognitive distortion. There's actually some other things that I want to kind of look at, and it's actually pretty interesting. So if you don't have a pen and a piece of paper, that's fine. But I just want you to see which one of these comes up for you. And if you have ever done any of the following, just jot it down, like just put a check mark or something so you can keep a tally if you'd like. Worrying, blaming yourself, blaming others, fantasizing about the future, dwelling on the past, imagining escape scenarios, leaving your spouse, leaving your loved ones, talking logical to yourself, speaking positive to yourself, speaking negative towards yourself, analyzing yourself. Why are you this way? Is your inner dialogue negative, or is your inner dialogue positive? Do you tend to be more of a positive person or a negative person? Fear of driving, other phobias, and random act of kindness. And so why I wanted you to look at that is because some of those are mixed. There's actually some positive things in there, and then there are cognitive distortions and other negative thoughts that are in there. And one of the things people don't realize is imagining escape scenarios where you get in a fight with your spouse or somebody else, maybe at work, and you're like, I'm quitting. Or you get in a fight with your spouse and you're like, I'm leaving. I have a plan. I'm leaving. Doesn't mean that you're really leaving, but believe it or not, that is actually a cognitive distortion. And it's just interesting because you look at these and you're like, wow, no, it can't be, but they are. Revenge, imagining revenge scenarios. That's another cognitive distortion. Revengeful. It's a negative bias. And so, I just wanted to leave you with that because a lot of people don't realize how they are. And so that kind of gets you into the thinking strategies. And it starts developing like the awareness piece, the self-awareness, like, holy mackerel, this is what's going on. So if you're interested, you can buy my book. Not that I'm really promoting it. It's there. I use it with my clients. If people want it, you're more than welcome to. There is a link, I believe, in one of the videos on my YouTube that actually has the book. You're more than welcome to get it. You can order it from me. I will actually sign and imprint on the inside cover with a positive message. That's just for you. Every single one of them are unique. If you'd like it, it's really a workbook for PTSD and CPTSD. It's wonderful to work to use for yourself. And it's wonderful to work alongside of your therapist, a counselor, coach, whatever. If you are, I shouldn't say whatever, but if you are working with a mental health professional, you can, it would be a good asset to add within your healing journey and things like that. So, any questions before we kind of take off? I was trying to keep it, but I see we're at, almost 51 minutes. So I truly appreciate you guys for being here. Next week, I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing next week, but I will have that up as soon as I can. If we don't have any questions or anything like that, thank you again, everyone, for being here. I hope that you at least learned a thing or two about what exactly cognitive distortions are and how they play a role in the overthinking mind and kind of, restructuring your thoughts. I apologize. My mind kind of went blank and stuff like that. So I do apologize, but I'm hoping you did grasp the idea of how restructuring works. And as always, to get a hold of me if you have any questions, you can email me. You can comment on the video. Again, I always forget to say this, but if you could like and share, this to your pages and stuff, I really, really appreciate it. At least get it out there for other people to see and to kind of get the information spread across all platforms. So I really appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a wonderful night. Be safe with the hurricane if you're on the East Coast. I pray that you will be safe. Again, I will be praying that the hurricane that's coming up will actually dissipate in the ocean. It won't even be strong. So that's just my prayers for everybody out on the East Coast. Good night, Michael. Thank you so much for being here, for supporting me week after week. I appreciate you. Appreciate Scott, Sly Fox, and anybody else that I may have missed that you were here and just didn't say anything. So thank you, everyone. Good night. And I will see you next week. Good night, everyone.